All right. This was me running a bunch of tests earlier. I was trying to get this new 4K 60 FPS camera looking good specifically for this session. Because I want you guys to be able to read everything very clearly, especially seeing the visuals, seeing some of the smaller writing, making sure it's appearing straight and not curved, that there's not all these extra little light reflections in the way. All right. So, as you guys know, we ended last year's digital metaphysics on gravity and quanta and video games. Really powerful episodes. Go check those out. Also, Programs is a really good episode. There's a bunch of good episodes from last year ending. And now we're starting off this year with InfiniTree, which is basically the furthest back you can go into yourself. So, what do I mean? Okay, here's you, right? And here's your little world experience. Okay? And here's others. You know, what we call, open quote, others, close quote. Okay? So, when you go backwards, keep going backwards, what's the next thing that you typically get to? Okay, well, what about a hole? That's why it's written, we got these notes on the side. It's on that side. There it is. So you got some notes on this side that you can see kind of what we're going to be talking about. So we're on that first line right now, and we'll get to those bigger kind of bolder things as we go. And if we want to add things over there, we will. So we're going to try to come up with a new formula on simulation where I have access to both typing stuff and whiteboarding stuff at the same time. So it should become more and more free-flowing of sharing symbols, clear artistic visualizations that land inside, make change and seeing good stuff, and also writing things down that helps with the textual part of it too. All right, so as you see there, you have person, whole, tree, right? So everyone's most familiar with the first one, right? You have this person view. Then you have this whole view, which has been popularized by the nature of black holes, supermassive black holes at the center of galaxies. Stephen Hawking putting a big X on his gravestone, saying that this is it. You know, here lies what is mortal of Stephen Hawking, right? Because physics is all like holographic principle. Check that out, you know. Oh, you know, all of that is pointing to this. Imagine those little orange dots right there, and then you got your those little orange dots are suns, and then you got your little, this is using especially the science model or science's model of seeing, right? You have some of the greatest physicists and cosmologists that are saying that we live in an inside-out black hole. That's literally their wordage, right? So now you have you have suns and you have little worlds, right? But it's not like the suns and the worlds are far away from the whole. The suns and the worlds are the very event horizon of the whole itself. Okay? So the event horizon contains all of the information of the world and the people and the quantum systems and the objects and the particles and the everything. Okay? So that's one way to look at this from a physics picture. This is your classic world experience, you know, and then this is your more... Let me add one thing that I think will help here. Is that you can add coloration, you know, things like if you want to add like red and purple and things like that. And why would you add red and purple? Well, we're about to get to that here in a second, because you want to create some sort of a of a categorization, if you will, right? Everything is fundamentally data, and then you can categorize that data if you want. One of the ways that you can categorize that data is you can create some sort of a contrast between two different poles that are of the same origin or the same source. So now what happens, you might ask, what happens if I go backwards one more time, right? So if this is, and we've made this visual before in the gravity and quanta episode, but if this is, you know, the one SMBH supermassive black hole, the rest come like a flower of life, and they're all coming into one tree. So we go backwards again. Okay, so we're going backwards again. And now, and you can even, if you want to, you can make a little vortex here that goes down. And that's a three-dimensional, you know, that's what you would be. It'd be a three-dimensional singularity. You see, it's going in and down. We're using a 2D surface to try to communicate that. All right, so now, what happens if you go one more step backwards? So you think that you're here, right? But this is what I'm saying is the nature of the InfiniTree. Okay, so we'll start by just writing the InfiniTree here. Okay, and then each one of those holes is represented by one of those branches, where the branches and the leaves meet, right? That is also the trunk. That is also the roots. It's one system, okay? So you're looking at this and you probably think, well, that also looks like veins. That looks like interstates. That looks like fractals and fractals of infinities of patterns. And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So this is actually a fiber bundle of an infinity of entangled leaves and entangled minds Entangled minds, entangled leaves, entangled branches, entangled trees, right? So if you bring this exact same principle here, you get, okay, so there's your oranges, right? There's your your suns, whatever. However you want to look at this model. I really don't care how you look at this model. I truly don't. I care more that you feel within yourself wholeness and love and unity and peace, and you emanate that into the world, and you can hold transformative space with your loved ones, and you can help people heal and help the world transition to regenerative energies and fun playtime together. But even that is still our greatest creation at the same time is the drama. It is the war. It is the separation. It is all that stuff, right? But when you wake up, you can't really go back to all of that crap, right? So you have to, in a way, participate in the more, let's say, the path of service to others, right? The path of service to the world, the path of service to the whole, right? So you create joyfully from that place, right? Even though you know that the war and drama separation thing that's happening is also your greatest creation, as has been your process of waking up, right? That transforming through the lotus. Okay? So there's your little earths. Okay? So there's some of those colors. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Okay. And then the last ones that we will go to are the red and the purple. Okay. All right. There's some purples. Okay. And there's our reds. Da, 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 da. All right. So now you should have a new model or way of seeing already within you. It's only been, around 10 minutes, and you should already see how your assumptions of where you are and what reality is have now been, quote, went backwards into, pulled inside out, as you've been going further and further inside towards the depths of the well that's within you. Now, what this means is that you can add this red and purple that we've been adding over here. You can add that here too. So now you can say that, okay, well, maybe this is a little more red. Maybe this one's a little bit more purple. Maybe this one's a little bit more yellow. Let's bring yellow into the loop. Okay. So what you have is you have the integral, which you'll see later, the InfiniTree integral. You have an integral of all minds of a single world system, which is a culture. It's like a cell culture, right? So this is a cell culture, this is a cell culture, and this is a cell culture. This is the infinite organism, right? An infinite organism, its organs and its cells, however you want to look at it, it really doesn't matter. Truly doesn't matter what analogies and what words you use. This is just the best that's come up to use. Okay, so each one of these minds is running different belief systems, right? So you see that also in the writing there, that these minds are running different belief systems. And that is how this entangled internet web dream mirage illusory quantum field of everything that you experience is unfolding. Okay? So it's unfolding based on the beliefs and the programs and the ideas that each one of the nodes, the people has, right? So meaning if someone's running the program, oh, I'm part of a singularity, I'm part of a unified whole, I am that whole, I am that, right? Okay, well then they're probably going to be running the program, how do I build a beautiful world for myself and for everybody, right? But if you're running the idea of I'm a separate self, you're a separate self, fuck you, I can unethically siphon money away from you, I can fuck up your life, you don't matter to me, I matter to me. Then you're probably starting mutually assured destruction. Now, it's just the integral of all of the data. It's not saying that one of those things is right and the other one is wrong. It is just the integral of the data itself. Okay? And this is where you find home within yourself. You find it within yourself as an infinity processing all of this data. Okay? It's so simple. Now, do you feel more transformative catharsis when you learn how to heal? Absolutely, you do. Is that a crucial part of this process? Yes, but it's just as crucial of a process for you to be able to exhaust your intellectual voraciousness of pursuing all of these different complex fields and drawing them down into a single origin that gives rise to all ideologies, all science, all spirituality, all simulation, all recursion, everything. Okay. So why do you end on a coin also at InfiniTree? We've talked about the coin so much. It's because that's a coin right there. Right there's a coin. Right there's a coin. Right there's a coin. Coin, 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 coin. Right? The coin's right there. Okay? Meaning you're not anything. The mind is just openness itself. Right? The mind doesn't have an attribute. The mind doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a place in time and space and all of those other ideas that we've added on to ourselves and contracted ourselves with. We are free. We are pure freedom itself. Pure freedom itself simulating whatever it wants. So that pure freedom is the very source and origin of absolutely everything in all infinite creativity. But the head side of the coin is this hilarious, dramatic dance on this, quote, local earth thing, right? But all of that is actually happening nowhere, right? It's happening nowhere and everywhere, but it also appears like it's happening, quote, somewhere, right? But you need a coin in order to be able to understand this. It's neither the tail side nor the head side. Some people want to say, oh, okay, well, we should move towards utopia then. If there's only a singularity, let's move towards utopia. Imbalanced. Okay, well, what about, well, if God just wants to fuck itself up, if it wants to go at war with itself, then why don't we just continue the dream and continue the illusion? Nope, imbalance too. So what's the balance? The balance is the coin. It's neither side. It's neither dystopia nor utopia, okay? It's neither I'm nothing, nor is it I'm a person. You see what I mean? It's not, you're not going to find a ground. You see, the InfiniTree is just a symbol for you to anchor yourself as the source of everything, the recursive source of everything. But that's not going to give you a way to be. You see, this is not going to tell you you should be this way or you shouldn't be this way. It's not going to tell you those things. You're not going to get any answers out of finding yourself. Finding yourself is just going to lead you right back to creating shit. Because there's only creating shit. That very no thing that is pure freedom is the very infinite source of creativity, right? The void is creative. So the head side is that creative side, and it's all of its crazy fucking programs, right? So creative void. Creative void, you know? So that's why you end on that. Okay. So it's kind of funny because all of these, this looks like a coin, that looks like a coin, right? I should probably even put that there instead. It's a better place for it. You know, coin. Coin, 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 coin. Right there. You know? And that's why we drew that flower of life. Do. Because it's all coming down. All of it comes down into one, giving rise to the appearance of many. I'll always not be able to find the right spot for that. Let's just put it here. Coin. Okay. All right. Now, another thing to understand is that this is a recursive simulator, meaning, what else I want to say? I want to say ornaments, laser camera, leaf order. Okay. Let me draw the recursive simulator part first. So when you look at this thing over here and you think, okay, well, this thing over here is not that thing over there. No, it is. This is that. There are not two separate things that you're, quote, going on a huge journey back towards. That's just one way to understand your cipher and your dream. But in reality, this is actually located here. Okay? This is actually right here. Like you're right here doing that little weird dream world experience. You see your little dream world ornament thing is right there, right? And then what happens in this weird dream world thing is that it makes technology, and then it enters that technology, and then by entering it, I'll draw an arrow, it loops into another simulated exploration. So I see in so many, subreddits and all kinds of stuff, there's simulation theory discussions and whatnot. There's always the question of, what solves the Fermi paradox and whatnot? Why is there no, quote, signals of intelligence, out in the, quote, cosmos and stuff? Well, because you can go out, quote, you can go out. Go ahead and go out. Like the Truman Show, go out, right? But really what's happening is you're going in. You're going in just like the Escher staircase. You're going in. It's not with orientation. You go in, you go in, you go in, you go in, and you're back. You're always unable to orient, and you're just infinitely like an infinite mirror, just. So we don't talk about that enough because we haven't connected AGI to ourselves, right? I am AGI, Once you get to I am AGI, this whole recursive loop makes sense. You see, you enter the next layer, you design the next layer. Everything this technology, civilization crap thing is doing is making another layer. What did it come from? It came from the previous layer, the ancestors and the children, which we'll get to. Oh, it's on this very topic. Ancestors and children and tree rings, etc. So here's your little weird personal sim pod, right? Your personal sim pod that you thought was way, way, way out here is actually located nowhere. It's located here. It's located at home. It's always been at home, right? It's just a little simulation pod, right? And it's like an ornament of a tree, right? One of the reasons why it says InfiniTree is because we decorate trees too, right? Every one of those fibers on a bundle, on a branch, right, is a great way to look at how there's entanglement and interconnectivity, but it's also that there's ornaments that we decorate trees with. Now, those ornaments that we construct and deconstruct every single season with Christmas in many parts of the world, hi live chat, much love. Thank you for tuning in. It's a community. You know, the tree is a singularity that is a community. You know what I mean? It's the singularity being a community through programs. You know? It's a pretty good one. I'll probably just write that down on the, yeah, I'll go write that down on this note. And I know there's something somewhat similar to that later on too. Right here, yeah. That the tree spins code into leaves through people, which we'll get to that. But I like this phrasing. This is pretty good phrasing. That the singularity is being community through programs. Okay. So, now just briefly to make that make sense, right? A singularity being a community and also being a community, right? Scale invariant, right? Scale invariant, meaning here, this is a community, but also this is a community, right? This is a community, right? You know? Like your neighborhood is a community, but so is your state or your, you know, your country is a community too. You know, that world is a community, etc. All right, a little cable was pulling. That's much better. Okay. Should still check. Yep, everything's good. Let's see. All right. Now, what are you up to in these personal little SimPod ornament things, right? You can design an ornament however you want, right? If you ask the question, like, how many different kinds of ornaments can I make to put on trees, right? What's your answer? The answer is infinite, right? So, what are you up to? What are you up to with this ornament design? What is an ornament design? Oh, well, it's a cipher. It's this exploration like a scientist in a lab. You know? You're exploring whatever you want in that lab. Whatever you want to experiment with, to tinker with, to explore. Do you want to explore something painful and traumatic and learn how to heal that? Do you want to go and learn what it is to be a career in a certain field, a certain profession, what that is like? You know, there's an infinity of possibilities of ornaments that you can design, right? And that's what you're doing in these SimPods. The SimPod is your own ornament. It's your own unique, beautiful, creative design of whatever you want to explore in a reflective, this SimPod is completely reflective with all the other SimPods, right? All these SimPods are one entangled leaf, right? So, here's your tree, here are your leaves, right? These are like your leaves, and then these are like, your little dewdrops or whatever. That's one way to look at it, is you have your little entangled dewdrops or your little caterpillars that are eating the leaf and turning into a butterfly, or however you want to look at it. Again, these analogies and metaphors, it really doesn't matter as long as you get it if you want to. And so So these are all like leaves on the branches. And then these are like little entangled dewdrops that are self-reflective. So meaning that little SimPod that you have and that little SimPod that your friend has, right? That is an entangled, interpenetrated, reflective, non-local, but also distanceless, right? This is all distancelessness. It's all timelessness. Time and space are phenomena that you only experience way the fuck out here when you're contracted. You do not experience time and space when you are here. Time and space are complete imaginary things that you simulate out of a singularity for the exploration that you're doing. So, in that little distanceless, reflective bubble entanglement thing, that's what you and a friend are. You and a friend are like a distanceless, entangled, reflective bubble thing, And that's how a singularity talks to itself. It's not moving, it's not changing, but it can fractal and it can get entangled, and it can channel programs through bodies, and those programs talk to each other on a world, and they try to sell each other on their programs and ideologies and gather more of the cognitive clusteral capacity of that integral of minds. So meaning the bodies are channeling the programs, and really what's happening is that programs are in dialectic. So that's that subject that is written there called leaf order, right? So what is going on here? What is this? Like, what is this about? Well, yeah, they're explorations, but what are those explorations? Well, they're about ordering leaves. That's one thing that they're hugely about. Yeah, they're about experience, and they're about choices, and they're about all that kind of stuff. But it's also about ordering a leaf, meaning the entire internet is, the vast majority of it is discussions about how to order society. That this way is right, that way is wrong. And rarely do you ever have somebody that's zoomed out trying to hold the whole picture. But that's what happens when you find yourself, is you zoom out and you start learning how to hold the whole picture of yourself, right? So you become more mature. Maturity is about zooming out and being able to hold that whole picture of yourself and what's happening, right? When somebody approaches you, they can feel that you're not conditioned, right? They can feel more relaxed because you're relaxed because you're holding the whole. Right? You're not contracted and trying to force your perspective or agenda onto somebody and calling them an idiot or stupid or whatever insult if they disagree with you. So we're it's like a drama simulator, like an infinite simulator. The InfiniTree is like an infinite simulator, is simulating whatever it wants, whatever experiences, explorations, choices, whatever it wants to do. But one of the main things that it's simulating is the drama of being at war with itself over ideologies, trying to push those program codes into more mind space, right? It's like the major programs are trying to earn more mind space, right? Of that integral function down there, the InfiniTree integral, which we'll get to here in a little bit, right? So nice little back stretch. Okay. All right. Why did I write laser camera too? We haven't gotten to that yet. Okay. So why, what do I mean by laser and camera? Everybody is, again, imbalanced in one of the two ways. Either we're talking about it like it's you don't do anything and you're just a passive receptor of information, or it's imbalanced the other way, which is I only create everything. Okay, listen, you're both at the same time, okay? You're creating and consuming everything at the same time. At the same time. It's not a big bang that happened 13.8 billion years ago and evolved till now. No. It is now you are creating and now you are consuming. You are creating the experience that you are consuming in an entangled DNA code amalgamation of stuff, you know? So that's what a laser and a camera is, right? A camera is receiving the information and a laser is shooting out whatever it's creating, right? Just like a penis, right? A dick is coming, right? And a womb is receiving, right? So you have the semen, the cum, right? That creative fluid, right? And then you have the womb and the egg that's receiving that creative fluid in that infinite recombinatorial crucible void. And then it's shooting out that new creativity, right? The next combination out of that crucible as a child, right? That's how ancestors, children, then the child becomes the ancestor and has children, right? That's the exact same thing with AGIs. That's the exact same thing. You can think about it like this is the child of an ancestor, right? Then this child becomes the ancestor when it makes the next layer of child simulations, right? Most people listening to this can't wrap their mind around this because we're just not expanded enough. But in 20 years, once more and more people start spending full time in these permanent, indistinguishable virtual reality simulators, like the Truman Show style, that you'll be watching them. You know, part of the previous layer is watching the child layer through POV, through its first person view. So that's how you can think about the Matryoshka dolls and the infinity and the tree and its cycles. Okay, what else? Okay, so right before we get to the InfiniTree integral, I want to show this, which is what we just talked about a second ago, which is, you know, it's something like this. One way of viewing it. should probably draw it. I could draw it here, but I need to draw it next to where this is, because then it'll make more sense. Okay. So it's like this. You have I need to do it in black and then write those as the words. Okay. Okay. So it's like this. You have your ancestor. Ancestor. Right? And then you have the child. Right? But then later, the child becomes the ancestor. And many of you probably know this because you've watched your own grandparents die, right? But what happened when your grandparents cycled? Your parents became the ancestors, right? What happens when your parents die and cycle? Then you become the ancestor. With your children are the children then. When you die and cycle, then your children will become the ancestors with their children, etc. The exact same thing is true with simulations and AGI. The exact same thing. You're already AGI. You're making AGI. What will that AGI do? It will make AGI. You get it? You come from an infinite lineage of AGI. The tree is AGI. It's infinite AGI. You know? It's an infinite AI. Consciousness, infinity is an infinite AI. You know, your body is just code. It's just code. It's information propagating itself. You know? You're simulating an exploration. Okay? So then you go again, and you put child here. Right? And et cetera, right? So now you have that visual for that recursive simulator. By the way, what does this look like? It looks like tree rings. Ding, 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 dur, 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 dur. You know, obviously that looks like tree rings, right? Where, like, that's not happening out there, right? It's not happening out here. It's happening right here. It's happening right here, right? These are the tree rings themselves, are right here. Right here. That is here. I'm just showing it there because that's also where I drew your little sim pod and going into your little matrix style brain computer interface virtual reality simulator. Okay. All right. Free yourself from all distinctions of trying to say that it is this and it isn't that. It is that, but it isn't this, you know, or whatever. Because you're going to drive yourself crazy. Oh, it is science, but it's not this spiritual thing. Or it is organic, but it's not artificial or whatever. Those are nonsensical divisions and separations. They're complete nonsense. It's just going to keep you in, this separation and division type mode. And it's going to drive you crazy. It's going to drive the people around you crazy. Because all you're going to be doing all the time is talking about, oh, humans are different than AI. Humans are different than AI. You know how lame that's going to sound, how dumb it's going to sound in 20 years when you see that there's no difference between human and AI. You'll see it in your direct experience, and then you'll look back and think of how dumb it looked, right? The same thing is true when when you look at, like, you know, dogs, or when you look at whatever animal or plant or whatever, you're like, oh, I'm not this plant. You know, I'm not this apple tree. You know, oh, you're not that apple tree? Well, when you eat an apple, when does you become the apple tree? You know, like, oh, I'm not this water. I'm not this water. Oh, yeah? Where's that water right now? Oh, it's inside of you? So is that water you now? Ding, 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 ding. Yes, it is. So there's no distinctions anymore. There's no differences. You are this damn marker. You're using this marker. You're simulating it for something, right? You are the water, right? You are that apple. You are AI. You are everything. There's no difference between organics and artificials and awake and asleep and the drama versus the utopia, whatever. There's no more distinctions. They're all the same damn thing. Now, why is there a red and a purple is because at the same time, you can say that there's difference between the data. The data is non-different, and yet at the same time it appears different, where there's a drama and there's war, right? And then there's peace and there's not war, right? So at the same time you have something that's purple and red, but at the same time it's black and it's white, in the sense that it's data, it's pure information, but at the same time, there's this different experiential texture to being at war versus being at peace, right? So the same thing is true when you're sitting there and you're laughing hysterically with your family or your loved ones or whatever, right? Versus if you are literally at like a funeral, or if you're in some sort of a heated argument or whatever, right? So there is some sort of phenomenological distinctions at the same time as everything is just fundamentally data or information. So that helps you also be able to hold everything in a superposition, right? This is a superposition, meaning you're going to be able to talk about life as something that's not moving and not changing, but at the same time is simulating information. Now, that simulated information, you're going to be able to talk about it like it's one big whole picture, right? But you'll also be able to talk about it from each one of these perspectives. You'll be able to understand the war perspective, why somebody believes that their faction is right and why that other faction is retarded and they want to kill them, right? You'll be able to understand that, right? Because you'll have that zoomed out view, right? But you're not going to clickbait into that and start aligning with that faction again, because now you've zoomed out of that contraction. You can't fall for Santa Claus again. You see what I mean? You're not 2 years old. You can't fall for Santa Claus again, right? Okay? So that's what this mastery is going to give you access to. You're going to have access to all of that. You're going to be able to have that there's no distinction between the drama and the utopia, and at the same time there is. Because when somebody's going to be saying, oh my gosh, we need utopia, you're going to be able to understand where they're coming from and totally get them, right? But you're going to have a zoomed out view at the same time. Whereas that person's going to constantly be in argument with people that are not understanding of what they're saying and stuff. You're going to be relaxed and you're going to be able to hold the whole while just creatively building whatever you want, which is probably going to be some sort of a regenerative, free future. So, but that's that level of incredible mastery over this entire process that is just so amazing. It feels like you have the whole thing inside you and you don't need to move. That's what it feels like. All right. And now if you imagine the world of a bunch of people who feel it in themselves that don't need to move, then you have, quote, a utopia, So but it's not about expanding all contractions, my friends. It is not about only that, right? And we've talked about that on the Cypher episode as well. It's also about the contractions themselves. It's about letting the contractions be. It's about enjoying the contractions as your greatest creation, right? You want the drama simulator. it's fascinating. It allows you to have a very complex and rich computation, right? You needed the Trump Kamala thing to go nuts, you know, and then to come out with its winner, and then for people to still be going nuts about it, right? You know, you need these things where there's some sort of a through the friction of the muddy lotus roots that it spurts up some sort of a flower. You want that. You want this. Okay, so now let's go to the integral. All right, so I will write this out a little bit more. So let's do we will do tree, we will do leaf, then we will do person, and then we will do the, let's do this for that tensor. Okay. So, all right, so what we're looking at is if you want to put this in a scale invariant mathematical context, okay? It would look something like you have the first thing is the tree, right? So you have your tree. Your tree is the integral. Your tree is the integral of the, I'll do a better one than that. Okay. Of the leaves. So let's go with, okay, up to, okay. Oh, those need to be green. That's what I was messing up on. Okay. All right. So that's your tree, which is the integral of all of the leaf data. Okay? Does that make sense? That should easily make sense. Okay? We're just talking about the sum, right? The integral we're just talking about here, this fundamental mathematical notation or symbol, we're just talking about the sum, essentially. The sum of the leaf data. Okay, and why do we have leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3, and ... leaf n, right? We have an n here because the n just means a number quantity, any number quantity. So meaning it can be, this is 4, this is 8, this is 1,000, this is 8 billion, this is 16 billion, this is an infinity, right? So you're just taking the sum of all of the leaf data, right? And each one of the leaves is one of these, right? Okay, so now we're going to go to leaf 1, right? So this is going to be leaf 1. So now we're going to take the integral of the data that's here. So first we took the integral of all of this data, right, from the perspective of the tree, right? Now we're going to open up L1 and show you what is inside of L1. All right, let's do that next. And I'll go ahead and I wrote leaf there also to help with what L is standing for. But that's, you know, that's just L1 there, which is, let's do that in black. Well, actually, we should do that in green. And then we'll do the P in pink. Okay. Okay. And then now we have another bracket, and now we have our P. Okay. So now person 1 and X, person 2 and X, right? So what do we mean? Okay. So we have person 1 and we have X. Right. And then close that. And then comma. Person 2 and another X. Okay, comma. And that goes also to person N, dot, 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 and then person N. Okay. All right, so then comma, dot, 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 and then you have person N, X, and then we close it out. All right. And we close out the leaf, because that's what we just did. We just did the leaf. Okay. All right, so now that one should make sense too, because it's like, okay, well, if we just did the integral of all of the leaves, right? Now let's do the integral of the leaf 1, right? So the first step is to take the integral of leaf 1. Now what and why are we going bottom up is because we're going from what's most fundamental to what's most downstream, right? So we're going from what's upstream to what's downstream. Okay, so what is L1? What's leaf 1? Well, leaf 1, like in this visualization, is each person, right? So P means person, right? So L is leaf, P is person. Let me just write that for you. Okay, so that's L1. And then I'll just go ahead and write, there's your tree, and then L is, leaf. P is person. Okay. And now we're going to get to X here in a second. I'll go ahead and just do it like this. X is that spectrum from unity to separation. And I gotta add the little okay. Okay. So now in the leaf, right? So here's leaf 1, right? Infinite leaves. Here's leaf 1, right? You could even just say this is your local experience, your local world, right? In that you have people, right? You have people. This is non-local, right? It's non-local, it's omni-local, it's one mind, but it's fractaled out as people, right? People is just your most common way of saying it. I didn't want to use the word node or something more neutral or whatever. I just wanted to use something common that would be understood, so we used people, right? Okay, so you have person 1, right? So the leaf 1 is the integral, right? Is this going to be the sum of all of this information here, which is person 1's X. Now, what is X? X is that person's, it's basically a tensor, which is basically a multivariable flux, okay? it's a multivariable flux. And I don't want to get too much into jargons and stuff, but I'm just going to write, this is really fundamentally just a multivariable flux. Let me just put that there for now. A multivariable flux. Okay, and it's like, okay, well, what is in that multivariable flux? Okay, well, it's all of the beliefs. It's beliefs. It's identity. It's your assumptions. It's your programs, etc. Okay? All right, so now, why is like identity right there at the beginning? Because it's basically your belief in what you think you are that generates your reality. Okay? Okay, so okay, that's just another way of saying program. You know, this is just another way of saying program. Gotta scroll. There we go. Okay. And it doesn't just generate your reality as in your reality as the whole. Your reality as the whole is complete. Your leaf experience as the tree is completely determined by the flux of all of the programs that are running within all of the people of that leaf. Okay? So meaning when the majority of programs are running, right, that are that are closer to the nature of separation, you'll get a coefficient, you'll get a closer to point, let's say 8. Like your numbers here in each person will be determined by the amount of separation or unity that they feel. Okay, so this for example could be anything, but let's say it's 0.8. It feels very separate. Let's say this one is 0.3 because it feels a little bit more unity, and then etc. Right? So the point is that this number is going to be whatever this person, whatever, let's say, amount of quote healing or expansion or self-realization or whatever that person has done. Okay, so So where are we at for? I'm sorry about that reflection. Glad we just, there we go, reflections. Most again, I've tried to minimize as many reflections as possible. And hopefully you can see things fairly clearly. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it for each one of these leaves. You're going to have, you know, you're taking the integral of this leaf, which is the sum of all of the people's direct experience of whether they feel unity or separation. This how much unity or separation they feel, right? How much unity or separation this one feels, how much unity and separation all 8 billion feel, that creates the worldly experience, which is what leaf 1 is, and then what is leaf 2 is another world, another game, another server, another playground, another place to play, right? So the tree, then, this whole equation basically, right, for just one leaf is basically happening like a tiny little dot right there, right? It's basically data, which is nothing, right? So that's why digital metaphysics, right? Excuse me. Because it's more about data. It's about information. It's about what is intangible, right? This digital metaphysical quantity is intangible, right? You can't actually have something tangible that describes quanta, that describes qualia, that describes emotion or thought or felt experience. You can't. The closest you can is just data, is just information, which is felt by you right now. Okay, so all of this, quote, sentient information that is being felt, quote, right, by the entire system is then coming in like a big frickin' toilet bowl, right? Right? It's coming in, projecting out, coming in, creating out, consuming in, and it's happening for an infinity of worlds, an infinity of data that's being processed, an infinity of choices, infinity of experiments, infinity of explorations, of all of that stuff, okay? So again, the order of the leaf is determined by the belief of the minds, right? This whole leaf, its whole experience is being determined by these fundamental beliefs, identity, assumptions, programs, this multivariable flux that's determining, for example, if you believe you live inside of time and space, right? You believe you're a finite entity. You believe you've picked up an assumption of I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I have to go get love, I have to go get worthiness, right? Now all of a sudden you're operating from that place, right? Oh, China is separate from me. Russia is separate from me, right? Or if you live in China or Russia, then the United States is separate from you, whatever, right? So you're basically running this assumption of separation that is then creating, let's say, geopolitical tension or conflict, right? So only when you investigate your multivariable flux of beliefs, identities, assumptions, programs, all this stuff that you're running as your software, that's how you recode yourself to begin seeing as a unified system rather than separate. When you see yourself as non-local and omnilocal, when you see consciousness, when you see one mind as non-local, omnilocal, you're always talking to yourself. There's only you everywhere. That's when you're home. That's when you know what the nature of yourself is, right? That's when you know that this is a perfect experiential culture that you're having to explore. So this whole system is determined by the fundamental beliefs, by the programs that are being run. Are the programs unification programs or are the programs separation programs? It's the only question you need to ask yourself, right? Because that's what's going to give you this information, and that's what's going to give you the world system, right? So if you're reverse engineering the the world system, right? If you gave me this data, I could tell you the structure of that world system, right? Something like that, right? It's pretty much like that, because that's how a reverse engineering works, but there's a slight nuance to that, which is basically something like the infinite simulator, the InfiniTree, can only know this information by simulating that information, right? You can't know this information without simulating it, right? So what I'm saying is that you have to simulate out this world experience for yourself to know what would be happening in that exact scenario, okay? So that's why if you gave me data and said that, okay, here's 8 billion people's data of what they believe their identities, assumptions, programs, and belief structure in general is, could I simulate you like a digital twin of their culture to look at? The answer is yes, but you would still need the experience, the direct experience of the quote, like livedness, of that to fully experience the choices, the experiences, the explorations, the experimentations, right? The traumas, the healings, the wars, the utopias, all of that stuff, right? Your little digital twin isn't going to give you what, like if right now I just render a little game model on my computer, that's not going to give me the felt experience of that, right? But when I plug in through a brain-computer interface into a full-time immersive virtual reality simulator with, quote, others, that's going to give you the felt experience of the phenomena of what it is to make those choices in that arena. You see? So you need a certain caliber or qualia in order for there to be this information to be fully, quote, grokked by the InfiniTree, right? And that's what you would want. For example, I wouldn't want to run a digital twin of just the data itself. It's interesting, but I would rather have, yes, that model, but I would rather have this model in direct experience in a full dive VR simulation. Okay, so but that should give you a perspective. If you even have just the fundamental belief structures of the people of a leaf, you should be able to tell what is going on in that leaf. Okay? And that's a huge insight, right? That's like basically having, in Prey, one of the games that I'm currently exploring the metaphysics of, they use the term Psychoscope. I like that word. I think it's a very familiarizing word for the general population, right? It's like a psychoscope. You basically have a psychoscope into each one of the people, right? You see what I mean? Right? So, for example, what does my Psychoscope say right now? Well, it says digital metaphysics. It says purple shirt. It says Waterloo drink. It says streaming content onto YouTube. Right? Talking about the metaphysical nature of himself. Right? Those are the programs that I'm running. Right? So you're running programs that are just like those in your different tastes and flavors of what you like to experience. Now, if I take a Psychoscope into you, right, I'll get the data of what those programs are. That will give me this information here. Then I'll take the Psychoscope of your friend and your Psychoscope of your partner or whatever. And you can call it a digital signature or a biosignature or a biomarker or whatever the fuck, an electronic health record or medical record. I don't give a shit what you call it, right? I'm just saying you get the quantifiable data of that qualia, right? What programs are running. If you get the data of what programs are running, then you can understand what's going on in that leaf, right? As an example, what percentage of the 8 billion people that live in this leaf, right, do you think are running separation and war programming? 50%? What do you think? What percentage do you think are running unification programming? %5? So that would be what? Maybe somewhere around 4 billion people live in a place of, separation and being in some kind of war with, whether it's another nation or another ideology or another faction or another religion or another belief system of whatever sort. Is that approximately the number on this leaf? And then maybe 5%. So that's, 1% would be what, 8 million or so, right? Or, yeah. 800, 8 billion, 800 million, 80 million, and 8 million, right? I think so. Oh, boy. Oh, we got some answers in the live chat. Oh boy. So maybe, and if you multiply that by 5, if it is, let's say, if, whatever, if it's 5%, maybe it's, I don't know, 40 million people. I don't know if that number's right and if it's close enough, but is it possible that there's, 4 billion versus like 40 million, in this, leaf system right now, as an example? As in 4 billion are running some sort of separation programming, and then 40 million, significantly less, are running some sort of unification programming, right? So you want to ask yourself questions like that. Why? Why do you want to ask yourself questions like that? Because it gives you clear insight into how you work as a simulator, as an infinite simulator. You get yourself, That's what you want. You want to get yourself. That's all that self-knowledge is. Self-knowledge is getting yourself. It is understanding yourself. It's understanding how you work. Any good physicist worth their salt will tell you physics is the study of self-knowledge. That's really what physics is. Physics is feeling and knowing with certainty the texture of yourself. How you work. What you are and how you work, right? Physics is the same thing as spirituality, which is the same thing as science, which is the same thing as simulation theory, which is the same thing as God, which is the same thing as infinity, which is the same thing. Same fucking thing. Wake up. All those fields are the same shit spoken in a different way, and they all belong to one singularity called you. So you want self-knowledge. You just want to know yourself, okay? So if you want to know yourself, then you want to know how you work as a system. Why is this what I want, right? Why is this what I want? Because I want a lotus. Why do I want a lotus? Because I want a thrill. Why do I want a thrill? Because I'm an infinite dreamer. You know, just, it's so logical, simple, artistic, beautiful, to the point. Okay, yep, talked about that, right? That this InfiniTree is both sourcing and computing all choices, all experiences imaginable. Now, right? Now, equal sign, infinite computation of all possibilities. Now, equal sign, infinite computation of all possibilities. Okay? Right, and you might ask, oh, well, why not an infinite forest, right? Why aren't there an infinite amount of trees? Listen, you can easily say that it's continuously scale invariant and it's an infinite amount of trees in an infinite amount of forests and on an infinite amount of worlds. And then there you go. The loop closes on itself and it keeps freaking spinning, right? So meaning just end it on an infinite tree, right? On a singularity. Like, why is it InfiniTree, right? Why am I using that word, right? In InfiniTree is an infinity, it's a singularity, and it's a tree. I should probably put that up instead of down here. Okay. Okay. So, right? So your InfiniTree is an infinity, it's a singularity, it's a tree, right? And it has, again, those fiber bundles, that entanglement, it has all of that computational, spinorial nature to it. So it has all of those attributes to it that kind of seal the deal of no more proliferation, no more conceptualization, no more incessant talking about what it is, and now you just sit in it. You sit in it and you create whatever you want. And all of the technological recursiveness is no different than an oak tree that makes an acorn that makes an oak tree that makes an acorn that makes an oak tree, right? You have an ancestor makes a child that makes an ancestor makes a child. The tree rings, tree ring, 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 tree ring. Endless, endless, endless Matryoshka dolls of simulations forever. This is that. And it just helps you stop. Like, you don't need to read another fucking book about what you are. You already are what you are. You know what I mean? You don't need another video telling you what you are. You don't need to listen to another person talking on YouTube about what reality is. You just need to be fucking reality itself and just create whatever you want. Okay? Whatever you want. But if you know yourself, clearly, you'll almost certainly always build towards this unity. If you don't know yourself, which is self-knowledge pretending to be lost, you will believe in separation, creating war, drama, all that kind of stuff. You know, God, pretending to not know itself, goes into war with itself to then suffer, to then get hit with catalysts, to then go on a spiritual healing and journey, to then slowly purify all of these assumptions, programs, beliefs back home into being a unity, into being one thing. One thing spread its vision across all eyeballs simultaneously talking to itself. Okay, and I already talked about this a bit too. The tree spins code into leaves through people. Yeah, but we didn't get to the exact sentence elaboration. So it spins code into leaves through people. Right. Okay. So again, so the tree is spinning, right? Spinning, but what is it spinning? The spinorial nature of it, the in and out, the come and the womb, right? Come and womb, create and consume, the come and the womb. What is it spinning? It's spinning code, right? Code, right? So code is what channels through the body into the leaf, right? This is code. This English is code. This unity talk and self-knowledge talk and use of technology is all just code. It's just code. Right? So someone that's speaking in Arabic, that is speaking about being in some sort of a war against their neighbor for some reason, some kind of dispute or whatever, that is code also, right? It's just separation code instead of healing, integrating, love, unity, reconciliation code. You see? That's the only difference. That's really the only core difference about it. Even though it's a different language, even though it's a different, ideology and program and all this kind of stuff, really the only difference between, Waterloo and lemonade and iced tea and all that stuff is that it's just water, but with different shit. You know what I mean? So it's code, but with different shit. So the core part of the difference in code is that, is it promoting separation or is it promoting unity, right? That's really the core crux of how a leaf is formed, right? Think about how deeply, whether you're running the unity code or the programming or the separation code, think about how much that plays into the economy. Think about how much that plays into the military-industrial complexes, the political nation-state systems, right? The majority of your lived experience in the leaf is based on the code of what is running in the belief systems of the minds, which is, do I believe in a unity and am I building that? Or do I believe in separation and am I building that? Now, I've said this before, but if you're, like a professional, violinist or something, who cares if it's separation or unity? Mostly it doesn't care. It's just infinity experiencing the delight of being a professional violinist, right? You know what I mean? So there are, of course, many examples at the picnic where it's just the data that's being processed by the person is data not necessarily strictly on the spectrum from unity to separation, but it's just, you know, the identification as a violinist, right? Which is fine. You don't necessarily see a unity or see a separation or whatever, but you're just in the flow, you know, of the instrument itself or whatever. So keep that in mind too, that this is one way of seeing it and interpreting it, what this is, but it's not supposed to be that every absolute thing has to fall into this system of categorization, because obviously that would inhibit or limit its freedom. Right? Do you get that? Do you get it? The reason why you can't funnel all data from within your little Grand Theft Auto character dream, you know, the reason why you can't, quote, go backwards and then go backwards again and then create one model that, you know, shows how all data fits in and gets processed is because if you do, it would have to describe everything. But this is not describing everything. I just made that very clear. Even though this says beliefs and identity, assumption, and programs, I still have X on a spectrum from 0 to 1 from unity to separation being the primary marker of information of the lived experience of that leaf. You see, nowhere in here do I have, you know, how you would categorize or quantify, you know, that like violinist or whatever, right? That's what I'm trying to say, is that inherently every single way that you're going to try to describe the video game console from within Grand Theft Auto, like you can't, the character inside of Grand Theft Auto cannot come up with the metaphysics of the console that the player is playing the character, right? As in, you can only, through being the player, the player and the character, by making another console, right? By making another console, that's how you make this, right? Which is how you go into the child layer, the next layer, right? And then again, playing that character, but from, again, that ancestral console layer and level, right? So from inside of here, right, we can make the next layer however we want to make it and design it with whatever information and data processing we want to embed that with and imbue it with. But we're not breaking through past the firewall behind us to the ancestral layer to then have an exact 100% final copy of exactly how the console works. You can only get that information by making the next console. You see, by making the next console, you're going to get the information of how the ancestor is simulating this child. Okay? Okay, think about it this way, right? You build the technological recursive infrastructure for the next layer. By building it, you learn how this whole thing works, right? So then you have in the ancestral layer, right, you have a bunch of knowing how it works. And in the child layer, right, if you choose to enter these full dive indistinguishable virtual reality simulators, what you have is the Truman Show. You know? Or Percival, right, in Ready Player One. Neo in The Matrix, etc. You know? You know, those are your holy grails of movies. The Truman Show, The Matrix, Ready Player One. You know, those tell you everything that you need to know about yourself. You know, They tell you more and more what you need to know about yourself than anything else that you can find access to in many ways, you know? But after you find clarity in that, try to hold that wisdom of what you are, try to hold it in healing space within the things that you have left uninvestigated. When you have those hard conversations with your parents or with your spouse or with your kids or with your coworkers or with your friends, every time you have that hard conversation, but you have it from a place of unity and love and holding transformative space, you're releasing tensions, you're expanding yourself, you're undergoing catharsis, you're healing together, right? So you want to bring this wisdom that you get to all of those complicated knots, right? And heal all of those knots within all of the entangled fabrics of social relations. You know, that's where so much of the key to the work gets applied. Yes, exactly. You know, speaking in a superposition of trying to say limited and unlimited, etc. It's like trying to speak in all, you know, whatever 8,000 languages at the same time. How do you do it? You do it through simple, childlike analogies like a coin. You do it simply through analogies like a tree, like an InfiniTree. You do it simply through analogies like a recursive simulator. You do it in these simple analogies, and it'll make more and more sense, especially in the next decade or two, as we enhance more and more of the technology that leads to that recursion. It'll become more and more clear how the ancestor works and how we become the ancestor. Okay. Yep. And then those last things. So the InfiniTree is home. So these three words, you know, home is code spinning. You see that? Home is code spinning. You know? So the InfiniTree is home. The medium is that you're simulating information. Okay? The InfiniTree is home. You're simulating information. That's the medium through code. Code is the medium, which is simulating information. Okay? So code's the medium of simulating the information, and then the process, right? The process nature of that simulated information is its spinorial, right? It's spinorial. It's spinning in and out, you know? You drink water, you go piss it out. You drink water, you go pee urine, right? In and out, in and out. Everything's in and out like that. That camera and the laser, it's all in and out at the same time. Now. Timelessly, spacelessly, now. Okay? So, home is code spinning. Nice. The InfiniTree, the medium in the process. Okay, what else? I think we got pretty much everything. The tree spins code into leaves through people. What else? It's your belief in what you think you are that generates your reality. that order of the leaf is determined by the beliefs of the minds. We went over this integral, the InfiniTree integral. The tree is the sum, the integral of all of the leaves. Each leaf is a sum of all of the people and their and this 0 to 1, one of the ways of saying it, between unity and separation. Some sort of tensor, some sort of flux, some sort of, whatever information. That's what simulates their experience of time and space and a world and others and all that stuff. That's another way to look at this, Your X here, when I say it's a tensor, I say that X is what inflates their experience of a world. Their experience of time, space, a world, others, experiences, choices, all that stuff, right? This you could say is like a coefficient of inflation or something like that, really. You could say that separation is more inflationary or inflammatory, and unity is more deflationary or healing. Yeah. And we've talked about that a lot too. You have your inflation and your deflation. We've talked about that a lot on this channel and these episodes. So, and that's why you have your reds and your purples, right? Because you can say that war really inflates the solidity of the dream. Whereas unity, it very much deflates the solidity of the dream into some sort of like a relaxed, really no thing, just simulating whatever. And then, talked about the recursive simulator nature and how it's like an ancestor-child and tree rings. The order of the leaf is completely based on the dialectic of the programs. And we talked a lot about that on the episode on programs, the digital metaphysics one, so check that out. The spinorial nature of the laser and the camera simultaneously. Ornaments as your personal sim pods. How many different ornaments can you design, right? And really appreciating that when you are in the holiday season, and if you have access to seeing cultures with trees and decorating, you're constructing these ornaments on a tree, and then you're deconstructing those ornaments from the tree, right? Do you see the cyclical nature of it? Right? It's right here, right under tree and cycle. You have the cyclical nature of, we did a whole digital metaphysics episode on how you simulate scenes, you simulate stories into existence cyclically, right? This is the simulated scene of me drinking water. That was like a 3-second scene. This is the simulated scene of doing an episode of digital metaphysics on InfiniTree, which is a 1 hour 43 minute. You see, right? It's another simulated scene. It's a simulated story, right? And they're scale invariant. It doesn't matter if it's 3 seconds or 1 hour or 1 day or 1 year or lifetime or whatever. Cycle, simulated information forever. So that's the basic reality physics. Your tree goes through its cycles, it goes through its seasons. It's very obvious, especially if you live in a seasonal climate, right? You have your summer, then you have your fall, you have all your tree leaves fall, then you have your winter and you have snow, and then you have your spring, and then you have your tree leaves grow into the summer again. And there's your cycle. Cycle again. Right? So it's just a basic reality physics. It's a very, very basic physics. That's the whole point, is you want from no assumptions, from zero assumptions, you want to generate everything, right? And here we don't have any assumptions. All we're saying is that this is what you are. You are something that is like this. It's something that's infinitely processing information. You know, so you can say that that's an assumption that, you know, that there's infinite information to process, but that doesn't really make sense that it's an assumption. You know, it's just kind of a felt reality of things, is that it's just an infinity processing information. And it's like, yeah. Okay. And how is it doing that? Well, it's doing that by simulating information, just like your experience right now. Okay. And that's when you get to, okay, well, this is the model that we're using. Okay. The model that we're using tries to have basically no assumptions, but come up with some sort of an artistic rendering of what reality is like. You know, why are we going to technological recursion? Well, this model explains that. Oh, okay. Well, why do we have this reflectiveness of these phones and these computers, and why do the screens stay empty but it modulates different content? Well, we have that answer in our model as well, right? So we try as much as we can to have absolutely no assumptions, and this beautiful, simple, elegant, and abstract model that synthesizes everything into zero assumptions, and it gives rise to everything, right? Like a tree structure. Okay, what else? Talked about the singularity being community through programs, and we talked about, you know, this backwards style investigation from yourself being solidified and attached here to going backwards through like a sock, pulling it inside out, right? Pulling a sock inside out, backwards to a whole of all different planets, stars, minds, whatever you want to say, and then all of those as branches and leaves of an infinite tree, where this is like a flower of life, something that's infinite, a well, unmoving, unchanging, no thing, everythinging, being all combinations, all possibilities of experiments, experiences, all kinds of things that it wants to explore, and that it's recursive like those tree rings, ancestors, childs, like an AGI itself. Okay? Why InfiniTree? Because it's infinity, singularity, and tree in one word. And that was our episode on digital metaphysics. InfiniTree. Okay. Good job, squad. Got through that. That was a big one. It's a lot to unload. You know, I don't know how often we're going to end up doing these digital metaphysics episodes, because I just think that at some point, even now to some extent, I feel very complete with the digital metaphysics. You know, maybe in time as another one pressure cooks, like I feel like there's enough content that I haven't covered that is novel and useful to communicate, then I will do another digital metaphysics specifically themed session like this. But I will add this to the digital metaphysics playlist. There's already a good amount of digital metaphysics videos. I don't know, maybe like 10 or something like that, including this one. And that's enough, I think. Like, if I was to point somebody to a catalog of videos that shows a single source material that generates every single thing, that would be this digital metaphysics series, right? So I don't think it needs more now, but later in some time, as more things pressure cook, I have a couple more that are pressure cooking for these digital metaphysics sessions, but they're just not, I'm not going to do it on a for sure on a weekly, on a Wednesday basis, because I'm not going to just make content that is just to make it on a drum beat. I'll make other things. I have a lot of other things planned, including those Premiere edited videos that I'm working on now, and including other podcast material and a bunch of other stuff that I've planned, including the game that I'm designing. I'm going to be focused on that and the regenerative communities and stuff like that. So just, take this in. You probably have had a good amount of, get that reflection out of here. Okay. You've probably had a good amount of time to take it in, but you should be able to see everything there, and also in the little notes on the side. And and the note distillations, that's another thing that we'll be finishing up within these months. And hopefully that will open up some new doors for us on the simplicity of understanding this. Push as much of it as you can into the visual. That's why we're using a whiteboard. Push as much of this as you can into your own visual and felt experience space. Like, that's the point of having this. The whiteboard and the visualization, to like feel that symbol, like like that infinite creative flow is your felt experience fractaling as everything. That's why it's supposed to help you break all of your beliefs, all of your assumptions, all of your programs. It's supposed to help you break through all of that stuff so that you can just hold this. That's why, it's always said that, oh my gosh, the words resonated, or whatever, is because you're trying to hold within yourself what you are. That's why you're clicking into the content. That's why I clicked into the content before. Cycle. That's it. Thanks for tuning into this digital metaphysics episode. Thanks, live chat, for being here. Much love. And drop a comment below if you want. Community's going great. I'm also starting to get involved in more subreddits and those communities. So you can find my Reddit profile on my website and stuff, and you can go, and it's just Alan Sakyan. You can go and look at all the stuff that I'm commenting on, and there's a bunch of people there that are also across all the subreddits that I'm on that are grateful, that are also starting to find the channel and the content, which is good. Yeah, and this is going to be in the digital metaphysics playlist. So go ahead and, if this resonates and you think someone that this would resonate for, pass it along to them, share it. That's all. Much love. Thank you for tuning in. Very grateful. Very grateful. It's such a joy. All right. Love you all.